On today's video, every ancient way of preserving meat. Yes, it took me a long time to make this video. I'm a little bit scared, slightly terrified, but excited to try it to see which one will be the best. And we're gonna start with this very first one. And you're probably thinking, is that mold? Is that even safe to eat? Here goes nothing.
When a tree gets injured, it uses its secret ingredients to seal the wound, and it is resin, which protects it against insects and bacteria. And in ancient time throughout Europe, this was a thing. You did want to cook the meat all the way through first though, because it would not work with raw meat. Once it was fully cooked after melting down some resin, the interesting thing is that as soon as it cools down, it seals whatever it touches. And if it can preserve a tree from insects and bacteria, it can definitely preserve some meat. This takes time though, as you gotta do a few coatings. And most importantly, you don't want to keep it outside on the sun. This one specifically, I left it there for 85 days. And surprisingly enough, it did not get any mold. It looked fine to eat. And I was actually excited to eat this thing.
I cannot believe that this will last for a very long time. I mean, this is just incredible, everybody. What a wonderful, wonderful way of doing it. And I can tell you one thing. This is really good. That is not bad. Not bad at all. I thought it was going to taste a little bit like resin and the flavor would go through, but not at all. You can feel the smokiness still. Yes, it is slightly dry as it's supposed to be. The texture is actually delicious. I'm putting it on A tier. Wow, we're starting with a bang.
Our very next one completely shocked me. I was not expecting this, because it all starts out nice and things go real south real quick. You wanna go ahead and cook the whole thing. The key is to cook it all the way through, as this next ancient way of preserving meats comes from Ethiopia. After fully cooking the piece of meat, you need a nice large container. Now there's one thing that everyone have in ancient times. People kept themselves with wood fires, and what was left behind was ashes. So to preserve the meat, the first thing you need is a nice bed of ashes. As once your meat is fully cooked, you want to place that right in the middle and bury the whole thing with even more ashes. Even though ashes can have antibacterial properties, it is not guaranteed that it's completely sterilized. As once it was fully covered with the whole thing, you press everything down as much as possible. That way, none of the air will penetrate deeply in there. To ensure that no bugs or nothing else would get in, they were covered with some banana leaf or any other available. Then you want to put it in a cool, dark place, usually a cellar, and I preserved mine for 48 days. When I started removing it, surprisingly there was no smell whatsoever. But notice what happened with the ash. It almost became a rock. I think it sucked all of the moisture out of that steak. Now we can't eat it like this. The next step is to go ahead and wash the whole thing, as this is what I was left with. The ash preserving method from many places, including Native Americans, African tribes, Middle East, and also Europe. This one scared me.
It broke my heart when the steak was fully covered with the ash. But it is a way of preserving meat. Let's see how it tastes. I know you want to know if it tastes like ash. No, it does not taste like ash. Not only that, it is extremely dry, and instead of actually producing moisture in your mouth, it takes it away. And the flavor that comes out of this piece of meat is not meat. You're eating dirt. That goes on F.
This next ancient method of preserving meat uses honey. Ancient Egyptians preserved fruits, nuts in jars full of honey, and possibly also meat. But the key was to cook the meat all the way through first. That way you would preserve it from spoiling, often done by smoking. There was one other step that you must take, and that would be to heat up the honey slowly, as once that's done, it is much easier for you to pour. There's one other key thing to do, and that would be to submerge the whole thing, making sure it was airtight. And what I did next is to set this on a dark place and leave it there for 45 days. Because once you are ready to eat, you take it out, clear up the honey, slice it nice and thin, and if you are like me, you are wondering how this is going to taste.
If smell is an indication of good, this should be delicious. Cheers. Oh, That is such a delicious bite. So originally I thought that it was going to be extremely sweet, but it's not that sweet at all because remember, it was previously cooked. So there's not a lot of penetration. The sweetness that you feel is more on the actual crust. This is an incredible way of preserving meat. And the flavor that comes out of it is actually craveable. It's not very juicy because this one specifically has been sitting on honey for a little bit over 45 days. And obviously you have to cook it well done, which is something sacrilegious for Brazilians. But it is an incredible way of preserving meat, and I'm putting it on A tier.
This next method is used by a lot of Native Americans. Imagine after your hunt you have a lot of meat left and you want to preserve it some way somehow. And this one was quite convenient to do. A lot of times Native America would hunt buffalo, deer, elk, or very lean meat. To cut this piece of meat, I'm going to keep it traditional by using this knife. This is an obsidian knife. It's basically a natural volcanic glass. It's shiny, extremely sharp, and often used in ancient times. Now the question is, does it cut? As you can clearly see, oh yes it does. It actually works extremely well. It is no problem at all to open this filet mignon. And if you're not careful, you will definitely cut yourself. But there's a problem. If you hang this outside, we gotta keep the bugs away. And for that, they made a quick spice mix. You wanna combine some juniper peppers, salt, black pepper, and sage. Blend that up real good, and you are left with this, the bug repellent. You wanna add a little bit, but not too much. And the key here is to hang it. You wanna let the sun dry this thing out. Depending on where you are, it might not take that long. Once it was completely dry, take a look. This is what we're left with. The ancient way of creating beef jerky. I'm very curious to find out what is this going to taste like.
The sun is extremely powerful. This is not beef jerky. It smells good. It's very dry. It's brittle, you see? The sun has completely evaporated any moisture inside of this piece of meat. And because it's so dry, it's not flavorful. It feels like I'm eating dirt. This is a terrible way of preserving a piece of meat. It's not even a nice snack. F tier.
Hopefully this next one might be better, but by the looks of it, I could be completely wrong. If you love pickles, this one might be for you. The key to make this work properly is that you must cook the steak all the way through. You can't use it raw, as the pickling mix itself will actually cook the steak. So you're better off cooking it and producing some crust at least. Apparently this was such a thing that they even used it in World War II. As once you have your steak fully cooked, and also your pickling mix, inside the tomahawk goes. It's a tight fit, but in the end I was able to put a lid on it. Now take a look at this, friends. Used by Eastern Europeans, South Asians, and Persians. In theory, this can sit here for a very long time. You do want to store it in a cooled place though, as the longer it sits, it becomes more sour and tender over time. So I let this one preserve for only 17 days. Taking it out of the container was not that simple. But take a look. The ancient way of pickling meat. Now just like you, I was extremely curious to see how this thing was going to look and taste. And as I sliced them, I was really excited as there was still a little bit of pinkness inside, but I was still concerned if this was actually going to be edible or not.
I really like pickle. I have high hopes. Cheers. So it is slightly dry, a little bit sweet, kind of grainy, and after you swallow it, the acidity overpowers your mouth. I'm not gonna lie, I love pickles. This one just was not for me. It's way too powerful. I taste no meat except sweetness, vinegar, and a grainy texture. I will not give it an F because you can still eat it, but it is not desirable. D tier it is.
Now for the Greeks, long time ago, it was a lot safer to drink wine than water. Most of the time, the water would be contaminated by the servants, so wine was always a safe bet. And they used it for a lot of things other than just drinking. One of them was to preserve meat. But you didn't want to let it soak for too long. If not, the alcohol would overpower the taste. But there was one other thing that would preserve the meat after it was soaked, and that would be salt, as it would start the curing process. It was also extremely important to let the meat hang dry. That way you tried to get out as much moisture as possible, allowing you to preserve the meat for a very long time. Mine was preserved for 32 days. Now since the meat was raw, you still gotta cook it, and smoking it with some wood is definitely the way to go for me, because the end result would be something extremely different than fresh meat.
I'm mostly excited about this one because I love smoking meat. Wine is a perfect pair with most meats, and the smell that is coming out of this thing is insane. Cheers. Wow. If you're wondering if you can feel the alcohol, yes, but very lightly, not too much. It is extremely flavorful. Little bit of acidity and bitterness to fight out the fattiness of this cut, and it's still extremely juicy, tender, and delicious. That is a win-win on my book. The only reason it would not go on an A tier is because there's still a little bit of the bitterness of the alcohol. But it's an Asian way of preserving meat, and it works. I'm putting it on B tier.
During ancient times, instead of using refrigerator, this was often used, especially by the French. The goal was always to preserve as much meat as possible by cooking it in its own fat. So if you're cooking duck, preserve it with duck fat. But before you can preserve it, you must cook it all the way through. You are achieving two things: allowing the meat to render all of its fat, getting it extremely tender, and most importantly, since it's going to be cooked all the way through, it will also allow you to preserve this piece of meat for a very long time. Once it's fully cooked, you want to cover it up and store it in a cool place. I'm letting this one stay here for 6 months. As you already know, fat will always solidify. You can either dig out and take out what you need, or if you're going to cook the whole thing, just bring the whole thing up back to temperature. As in the end, you should be left with this: duck confit. This is an extremely popular way of preserving meat, but after being in this fat for such a long time, is it still any good?
Only one can wonder what this is gonna taste like. Cheers. Oh wow. Oh my God. It is so tender, juicy, nice and salty, extremely fatty. Wow. There's a reason why the French still use this technique today. It is phenomenal. And if you ask me, Guga, did you enjoy that duck? This is some good duck. Oh yes, it is. However, is it the best way of preserving meat? I don't think so. And the reason why is because out of all of the ancient way of preserving meat, this will be the most expensive. And instead of using the fat only to preserve the meat, I would say eat it up or use it in burgers and different things. It's going on B tier. Borderline A, seriously. It's very good.
Now, Vikings did not play around. They were feared warriors, and since they were always on water, often their diet contained of fish, and there was one really good way of preserving it. They often used seawater to get it nice and salty, but that just wasn't enough, as once they came to land, smoking it provided extra flavor and also preservation, as it will last through their voyage throughout the sea, and very often they would trade their smoked fish for goods, so this had to last a very long time.
Preserved for a little bit over 2 months, this salmon still looks delicious. Cheers. Yes, it's missing a little bit of saltiness, but if you love smoked meat, you're going to enjoy this one. And the fact that it has a tremendous amount of fat, it is extremely juicy. And that's the reason why it is missing a little bit of saltiness. But this technique, it is still extremely popular today for that specific reason. It is delicious. This is a phenomenal way of preserving meat. It is definitely going on A tier.
Did you know in medieval times in Japan, rice was used as a currency? Samurais and lords were often paid in rice, not coins. And who doesn't love rice? But there was one other thing rice was also used for, and that was to preserve some meat. And the way to do it was extremely unique, as you would combine rice and garlic together, followed by often being ground beef. Now, there's something very dangerous with rice when you leave it alone for a long time, as it has a bacteria that can survive the cooking process. It's called Bacillus cereus, the most notorious bacteria in rice. As once everything was mixed together, you wrap it in some type of leaf. Then you let the whole thing sit and ferment for up to 10 days. As once you're hungry, you open the whole thing up and get ready for a weird smell, because this one took me by surprise. But since it was raw, now you want to cook it and make sure to cook it all the way through, as in the end you are left with this, something that should not be done. But we went this far, so here goes nothing.
This one scares me slightly, everybody, because the smell that came out of it as soon as I removed all of the banana leaves was very, very unique. However, respectfully, I'm gonna try it. Here goes nothing. Cheers. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. There's nothing spicy on this, but it feels spicy in my mouth when I'm taking the bites. That is probably the fermentation that actually happened. It tastes like a very strong ground beef with slightly funkiness. It's also extremely sticky and not my favorite way of preserving meat. In theory, if it's preserved in a very cold environment, it could last you for years. However, it's just weird. And for that reason, I'll put it on C tier.
Now, during medieval times, the king would have a lot of knights. Boar hunting was considered a royal sport. It was dangerous, prestigious, and a display of courage. When the boar was not fully eaten, they often tried to preserve it. One of the things that they used quite a bit was salt, but also sugar. When you mix that up real good, in order to avoid any insects or bugs, oregano, parsley, and black pepper was often used. As you can see, after mixing the whole thing up, you're left with this mixture. Now, the whole idea is to leave it alone for 1 to 2 days. As once the time is done, as you can clearly see, there's a lot of salt left. You want to remove it, and you are now left with a cured piece of meat. It is ready to be preserved. You can get as creative as you like in order to hang this piece of meat. Since it was medieval times, they often just hang it on a tree. Now, what you don't want to do is to put it directly on the sun. The cooler the place, the better. That way you can preserve it for a very long time. Mine was there for 8 days. Now you can slice the whole thing, cook it whichever way you desire, and obviously go for the taste test and see if this would be too salty or actually good.
I mean, this is how the original bacon was ever made. I don't think it's gonna be bad. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Super porky. I thought it was gonna be like bacon, but not at all. Very, very flavorful. A tremendous amount of savory and saltiness, which I quite enjoy. Pair this up with a little bit of rice, it will be amazing. This is a delicious way of preserving meat, especially pork belly. It's gonna go on A tier.
This next one is the oldest one of them all because it uses one specific ingredient we all have, and that would be air. A lot of air. Now, many cultures will use this method of preserving meat. You definitely want to use a very lean cut of meat and cut it in small strips. Now, to keep the bugs away, you use a very specific seasoning, including tarragon and rosemary. And at the same time, instead of just keeping the bugs away, it produced flavor. Now, the key of this was to have patience, as you would also want to hang the meat where there was not much sun. We want it dry, but not too dry. Now, you'll be surprised because it does not take that long. After just 3 days, this thing was extremely dry, and now you can take it inside and let the whole thing sit for as long as you like. And at the same time, I was excited to try it because even though all of the moisture went away, it smelled really good.
You hear that? It's like jerky, but it's still a little bit moist. Oof, moist. Cheers. Oh wow, the flavor is amazing. I thought it was gonna be paper dry, it's not. I know it might sound weird to you that I'm enjoying this. And I'll be honest with you, it's like a snack. It's a snack I can have all the time. This one is my favorite, S tier. If there's one video that I've learned the most, it would be this one. And the fact that Asian methods are still being used today should tell you something. Meat is precious, nutritious, delicious. And if there's any way that we can preserve it longer, it should be taken as seriously. I hope you've learned something and you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below which one was your favorite. Because for me, the simplest one of them all, air drying, did wonders. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, be sure to subscribe. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.